Hey everybody, welcome to History 1302. I'm Professor Norwood, and this is going to be kind of an introduction lecture, okay? So we're going to go over the syllabus, kind of what my expectations are, what I expect of you, what you can expect from me, and just to clarify some things on the syllabus, and then we will do a brief introduction lecture just to give you an idea of how I lecture and what it will feel like when, we're in this digital classroom, which if you are freaked out about the fact that this is an online class, don't worry, you are not alone. This is the first fully online class that I've ever taught. Obviously, last semester, my classes ended being online like everybody else's, but yeah, I've never had to actually create an entire course. So just, bear with me and don't worry, we'll get through this together. So without further ado, let's hop into the syllabus. Okay, so how about a little bit about me? Now, this is going to happen periodically throughout my lectures. If for whatever reason I can't get my face on there because it might, end up covering up information on a slide, then you will just be hearing my voice over the PowerPoint. And yeah, that's what we're going to do right now just to kind of get you familiar with it. First up, let me talk a little bit about myself. It's one of my favorite subjects. I love talking about myself. First and foremost, my name is Professor Nicole Norwood. You are more than welcome to call me Nicole. This is going to be probably a pretty informal class. Not only that, but I'm fairly young, and sometimes it's a little weird for people to, refer to me as Professor Norwood. I will also answer to Norwood, just, please don't call me hey you or listen woman, because I don't like that. Next up, we have my email address and my phone number. Now, many of you might have seen the announcement that I posted yesterday, and it did have that information on there. However, it is both on your syllabus under instructor information, and it is right here on this PowerPoint, which you will also have access to. I'm not going to go over it because there you go. Although I will say that that phone number is my personal cell phone number. So please don't be drunk text messaging me at 3 o'clock in the morning. You may be laughing, but seriously, I've had students do it. I struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is very important for me to keep a very stringent schedule because it helps with my mental health, which means that I get up regularly around 6 a.m. and I will go to bed at like 9 or 10. And I know that makes me sound like an old lady, but it's what's best for me so I don't go do crazy things. So yeah, please don't drunk text message me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Or if you do, I'm going to call you when I get up at 6, and I'm going to call you and call you and call you until you finally answer, just as payback, okay? Because that's the type of person I am. I don't get mad, I'm going to get even. And the next thing that we should probably talk about are what my credentials are. Now, I did go to the University of North Texas, where I received a bachelor's degree in history. My specialty was actually 20th century warfare and its impact on society. And then a couple years later, I went to Norwich University, which is a private military academy in Vermont. That's where I got my master's degree, and it is in military history. My specialty was post-traumatic stress disorder and its manifestation in World War I. I do eventually hope to go get my PhD in war studies or possibly psychology. It just kind of depends on, what exactly my dissertation is going to be over, but it will be related to post-traumatic stress disorder and probably mutinies because that is my thing. I like studying mutinies, which is a little bit odd, but hey, just roll with it. Anyways, that is a little bit about me. Now let's get into the evaluation and requirements for this class. Sorry, having my morning coffee. It's kind of early. Okay, so evaluation and requirements, and I do have my notes down here, so I'm not ignoring just looking at you. It's just, for whatever reason, my monitors don't want to show both the PowerPoint and my notes because that's just my luck. So the first thing that we have is we really have only 3 things that we're going to be doing in this class. That's 1, because I don't really know what I'm doing online, and 2, I'm sure most of you don't really know what you're doing online. So we're going to kind of take it easy. we're going to have a syllabus quiz at the end of the week. It is over the syllabus. But and I know that you're probably looking at it going, oh my God, it's 20% of my grade. Fun fact, you have as many tries as you want to have to get 100 on the syllabus, okay? So, if you bomb it the first time, well, you can just take it again and again and again and again. But, I mean, that's up to you. You'd be surprised how many people I have that are just like, nah, an 80 is fine. That's fine. Whatever you want. It's your degree. Have fun with that. The next thing that we have is participation and attendance. I don't really know how to take attendance online, and I don't feel like it should be necessary for you guys to log in every day. One, because, well, I don't want to log in every day and be like, okay, all these people, actually logged in. It's like, that sounds terrible. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do discussion board posts, and that is going to account for your attendance. So as long as you do the discussion board post and you respond, then, well, you will be attendance for class that week, okay? I apologize. If you can hear my cat, she's up on the table with me over here wanting out of the window. Shh, be quiet. I have a lot of animals, so you will probably see them periodically. They like to come be right in my way. Go figure. Okay, so we have, participation and attendance. So each week you are going to have to participate in Blackboard discussions. You will have access to it this week, and a lot of the time I will prompt you with like a question, and then you can answer it. And what I want you to do is I want you to post one discussion board post. So an initial post that, answers my initial question. And then I want you to respond to someone. Okay, so you have to do at least one response. Now this week is a little different. Okay, just to kind of ease us into how we're going to do things, the discussion board post for this week is not going to be over lecture, okay? It's actually going to be an introduce yourself thing, and that's because this is an online classroom, and I know that sometimes it can feel a little awkward to participate in things online. So to get you guys kind of familiar with each other, in case you have questions or comments, you will be able to access the discussion board post and you can interact with each other. I will open just a general discussion board where you guys can go and just like shoot the shit with each other if you really wanted to. But for this week, your actual assignment is quite literally just an introduce yourself, okay? And there's instructions. It's all going to be posted for you, so don't worry about that. And then I have examples where you guys can get to know me a little bit better, because again, my favorite subject is history, but it's also just talking about myself, which is usually everybody else's favorite subject too. Not talking about me, or me talking about myself, but like you talking about you. That sounded even more narcissistic than I meant it to. Okay, last but certainly not least, obviously, because it is 50% of your grade, we have content tests. Oh, real quick before I forget, right? So with participation and attendance, that's a total of 300 points over the next 5 weeks. That is roughly 60 points weekly, which means it's 30 points for your initial post and it is 30 points for a response. So if you just post but you don't respond, you can only get 30 points, okay? Because you've only done half the work. With the content tests, they are 500 points over the next 5 weeks, which means that it is 100 points weekly. Now, here's the thing, is it's going to be strictly over lectures or any type of content that I give you. So if I give you readings or there is other media that you have to watch, I really love YouTube because I'm a millennial and I think YouTube is a fantastic way to get people to learn and get you guys stay interested. So if you like YouTube, you're probably going to see things in my slides where I'll be like, okay, pause the slide and now go watch this video on YouTube. And they'll be in order and it'll tell you, in the thing, okay, you need to do it between this slide and this slide. And anyways, you'll kind of get the hang of it. Don't worry, I promise. It's not going to be that hard. So every week you will have a content test, okay, to make sure that you're actually watching these lectures. And they are called tests for really district purposes. Think of them more as like quizzes. And the reason why I say that is because you will have 3 attempts to get 100%. Okay, so if you do it the first time and you get a 60 and you're like, that sucks, you have 2 more chances to get it. So take advantage of that. I'm giving you 3 tries. 3 tries to get 100. And also they'll tell you which ones you got wrong. Okay, so like, as if I couldn't literally hand you an A on a silver platter anymore, here's an A on a silver platter. We'll put this in a disclaimer. Yeah, if you can't pass my class, even though it's online, then you should maybe reconsider going to college, because I'm probably one of the easiest professors you will ever take. And my in-class class is pretty similar to this. So if you have any questions over this, right, that equals 1,000 points. That's what the little bubble over here is, right? So you have 300 points for your discussion board posts. Oh my god, brain fart. 200 points for the syllabus quiz, which you can take as many times as you want. I can't stress that enough. So if you don't do well the first time, that's fine. Just do it again, or do it again, or do it again. And then you have 500 points, or 50% of your grade is comprised of the content tests, all right, equaling 1,000 points. If you have any questions about that, I guess let me know. Before we move away from assignments, I want you guys to kind of get an idea as to what I'm expecting when I say you need to have a discussion board post. So each week I will have a question that you will need to sort of answer. And I know that this is where things get a little finicky, because there will always be one person in every class that's lazy and will just read everybody else's and like bullshit their way through the discussion board posts. So, I mean, yes, that does kind of suck if you're like the first person to post, but at the end of the day, don't worry, you're going to walk away with the content that you need, the knowledge that you need, and they won't, and they'll just simply be crummy at writing, and don't worry, they'll get theirs in the end. So don't be that lazy person, okay? But you're going to have a question. So here is an example of what a question would look like. And of course, I say this is a question, and it's actually not a question. So whatever, just roll with it. The question that I have here is from my history, my Western civilization class. So that way, you know, nobody can take this and go, aha, it's mine. So the question is, Clausewitz and Jomini were 2 military theorists birthed from the Napoleonic Wars. Explain how each of these great military thinkers interpreted Napoleon's genius and how their ideologies influenced Western civilization. Now, that one is really more of an explain it to me, right? So in an answer that I would be looking for, and this is probably far more in depth than what I would expect many of you to do, but look at the length, you guys. I mean, there's probably, you know, 5 to 8 sentences here. Okay, I'm not looking for one word like, oh, the Holocaust was bad. Like, okay, that's cool, and I do read your discussion posts. Okay, so don't sneak in a response that's like, ha ha ha, I have clown feet, because I actually do read your stuff. Okay, an answer to that question would look something like this. Napoleon's achievements were so impactful on Europe that it prompted a nervous search for the roots of his genius. As a result, 2 schools of thought emerged. The first, written by Baron Anton Henry de Jomini, argued that Napoleon had simply exploited the national and liberal innovations of the French Revolution and made himself the champion of the new democratic age. And in a sense, he did, declaring his right to rule not through divine right, but by vote, and earning himself a popular following. The second, written by Karl von Clausewitz, ignored these political questions and confined analysis of Napoleon to the military sphere, arguing that Napoleon's fame and victory stemmed from purely military factors, that any regime, imperial or national, reactionary or liberal, could successfully imitate. Now, both men contributed to military history equally, and although Clausewitz's theories are more timeless than Jomini's, it's inarguable that Jomini made an impact on Western civilization. Now that could be your entire answer to my question. You've literally answered everything I asked for, right? Explain how these great military thinkers interpreted Napoleon's genius, which you did, and then how their ideologies influenced Western civilization, which you did, right? Now, a response to somebody else's post. So if I was reading this post and I said, oh, I want to respond to this, your response shouldn't be, that's cool, or yeah, I think you're right. It should be more in depth than that, okay? So my response to this post would be, I believe you're right. The primary difference between these two military thinkers is that Jomini's strategy focuses on operational aspects of military management, while Clausewitz's works focus on the abstract psychological aspects of military management. And I'm sure that some of you are reading this or listening to me and going like, what in the world are you talking about, woman? And it's totally fine. I'm not expecting you guys to, write at this level. I wrote this and I have a master's degree. I have probably a couple more degrees than everybody in this class. And so I'm not expecting you to be this wordsy or anything like that. But what you can get from this is that it is very clear that you understand what I'm asking of you. You have regurgitated it to me on paper, and then you understand the content enough to respond to somebody else using your intelligent brain. Okay, not just, I think that's great. You can just add on to theirs, like I did here, right? The primary difference between them is this and this, or you can simply agree with them and then you guys can start a discussion, hence discussion posts, right? About, what this really means, what the question involves. And I know that this is something that's going to be a little difficult. So to get into the swing of things, right? That's why this week we're doing an introduce me thing, because that you are somebody that you know the best, right? And so if you know yourself, then you should be able to write something about this length about yourself. And then when you read somebody else's, you should be taking in what they're saying about themselves, and you are going to respond. Now, this week is a little different. I am requiring 2 responses simply because I don't want everyone to respond to the first person that posts, just to get it out of the way. Okay, so you have to respond to 2 people this week, and maybe you have shared interest, and you could be like, what? You like this thing? I like this thing. And then you guys can kind of talk about that. It does not have to be that formal this week, like how this is. You can totally just be like, hey, what's up? My name's Nicole, and I like to longboard. I like to lift. I have a home gym. I'm married, blah, 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 blah. Okay, like, I'm not going to be worrying about grammar and punctuation, stuff like that in these discussion posts. This is not English class, this is history, and I'm looking for your understanding of the content that I'm presenting. Okay, so that doesn't mean that you can just have one giant paragraph that's a run-on sentence. If I can't understand it, then obviously you're going to get points docked. But as long as I can read it and others can read it, then you're going to be a-okay. Okay, so I realized that in my PowerPoints, I have like a rather large gap. I don't even talk about the second page of your syllabus, which is an actually important page. So we are now moving on to the second page, and I'm going to kind of talk about it just a little bit. Okay, so that way, but just understand that the stuff that's on the screen right now is actually for the third page of your syllabus. I've had a couple of people ask me about the required text for this class, and if you've already looked at the syllabus, which posted last night, then you will know that yes, there is a required text. However, due to COVID-19 and the current circumstances in which we are living, I understand that textbooks are kind of difficult to get a hold of, and we will not be using it this class. And it's usually your professors can't tell you, oh, don't buy the book. Okay, that's like against what we say. But because of extenuating circumstances this semester, we won't be using the book, which means if I do provide you with reading, I'm going to provide it to you. Okay, so if we read anything in this class, which there will be times that we will, I am going to just post it on Blackboard for you. You will be able to download it as a PDF or print it out, whatever your preference is, and you will be able to read it that way. So you do not need to invest in the history book for this course, which, in case you were wondering what it is called Of the People, A History of the United States Since 1865, Volume 2. And if you are one of the few that I have in this class that's like, I love history and I want to go on and I want to be a historian or I want to major in history, then that's awesome. I I am excited for you. Just try and think about what you can do with that history degree, because it's, I get to do this because I am not the breadwinner of the house, okay? So, with that being said, it is a good investment if you are planning on doing anything more than this history class. It's a fairly affordable book, and it has a lot of really great resources in it. But if you are like, I'm only here because the state of Texas says I have to take history again, then no, you don't need it. Okay, so don't worry about that. The next thing that you will see right under required text on your syllabus is the course schedule. And I provide you with a course schedule so you can kind of see in advance, what's going on. This is also in the Start Here on Blackboard. So like if you get into Blackboard, there is a big like link on the left-hand side that says Start Here, and you can click into it, and it essentially has the course schedule there. And the course schedule just kind of tells you what we're going to be going over, so what you can expect. So let's say, you have vacation during week 3. Okay, you can look at week 3 and you can go, okay, we're going to talk about World War II in week 3, specifically these things. Okay, and you can prepare yourself. Okay, that looks like it might be not a good week to go on vacation. Of course, if you've already planned vacation, then I don't know what to tell you. You probably shouldn't have taken a 5-week class, which you shouldn't be going on vacation anyways, okay? COVID-19, there's a pandemic going. I don't care what Texas says. There's still a threat. You need to stay inside. Unless, of course, you're protesting because, yeah, that's okay. Still stay 6 feet away, okay? And wash your hands. And wear a mask, which also helps people not identify you, if protesting is your thing. Which it should be, because there's nothing more American than protest. That is a discussion for 1301, though, not 1302. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to the 1960s. I lied. But yeah, not for introduction. On the in the course schedule, you can also see right there where I have all of your assignments listed out. You will have access to everything that you need for the week on Sundays. Okay, so on Sundays at midnight, okay, so technically Monday, you will have access to everything that you need for the week. Okay, and then everything is due, your content test, your discussion boards, your response, all of that stuff is due Saturday at midnight. So for this week, right, I don't have my phone, oh, it's the 1st, right? So tomorrow, June 1st, or tonight at midnight, you will get this PowerPoint. You will also get the PowerPoint for the Gilded Age, and you will find that your syllabus quiz, the content test, and the discussion board will all be accessible to you. And you can watch the lectures, and you can do those assignments at your own pace throughout the week. And then on, Saturday, they are due at midnight. Sundays, I understand that, a lot of teachers just want to roll right into that. And I have several overachievers that as soon as midnight rolls around, they'd be like downloading their stuff on Sunday and working. I believe in taking a day where you can just chill, okay? And especially in the current climate of things, between the pandemic and, the riots and all of these things, I really think that we need to have just a day where everyone can just be like, okay, I literally have nothing to do, so I'm not giving you things to do on Sunday, okay? I'm forcing you to take a day of rest, if you will. So you will get everything Sunday at midnight, or Monday, really, and it will be due, every assignment will be due in this class Saturday by midnight. There is no late anythings, okay? There's no late assignments. You will either turn it in on Saturday, or you will get a 0 for that week. That's just how this class is structured, because it is online, and I'm giving you, 6 days to do the assignment. If there are any questions on that, though, just let me know, and yeah, we can learn about it. Talk about it. Learn about it. Oh my goodness. See, it's already kicking in. I miss talk all of the time. Next thing that we're going to do, we're on the 3rd page of your syllabus now, is there's additional information and resources there. That is just the Writing and Learning Center. There's library campus hours. Of course, that doesn't matter now because, you know, COVID, but you can still access the library digitally, and the Learning Center has been making really big strides trying to transition all of their stuff digitally. So, I mean, if you have questions about that, let me know, and I can put you in contact with someone if you don't feel comfortable, you know, finding that information for yourself. But the most important part on the third page is the course policies and the student responsibilities. Okay, and that's why it is this particular screen on my PowerPoint. I do have a list of your responsibilities in this class because you're an adult. The responsibilities that you have are, you know, I don't accept late assignments here. Okay, if you don't complete a discussion board or a content test, well, then you get a 0 for that week. Okay, and that can build up pretty quick because we're only in a 5-week class. You're expected to be prepared for class. All right, so you need to watch the content lectures. You need to read any required text that I give you. You simply can't email me with, oh, I didn't know, or I couldn't figure it out. That's not acceptable. Do you know why it's not acceptable? Because we live in the digital age, and if you want to learn something, you have a pocket computer. Okay, this pocket computer right here, and you can do this wonderful thing. It's magic. It's called Google, and you can ask it almost anything, and it will tell you. Okay, and you can watch YouTube videos on how to do it. So I mean, I don't want to hear, oh, well, I didn't know how to do the thing. I'm also here, okay? I will be, oh, that's something I forgot to say. I will be holding office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week this semester between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. on Blackboard Collaborate. Okay, so I will quite literally just be sitting there. I will probably be playing video games or doing other stuff, but you guys can pop in and out if you have questions, okay? So you literally can't use the excuse that I didn't know or I couldn't figure it out, okay? We don't live in that age. You can't do that no more. Anymore. Whatever. So the main thing that I want you to get from that is that, you know, at the end of the day, you guys, this is your education and you have to take some kind of responsibility for it. I can't do everything for you. I can go, here's your A on a platter, and you still have to reach out and take it. I can't do that for you. And that means that I do have a promise to you in return. If you're having trouble with this class at any point, the pace, the material, the expectations, if you are having personal matters or anything else that's relevant, then, you know, just communicate with me as soon as the trouble starts, not in a week afterwards or a week before semester. Oh, back in week 2, I had this thing. No. You need to talk to me as soon as possible. You don't have to go into what's going on with you. Okay, like, I don't need to know if you don't feel comfortable sharing it. I just need to know that you are experiencing, you know, personal problems. Like, listen, I have mental health issues. I have diagnosed complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I do therapy 2 times a week. I'm on medication. I get it, okay? And some days I just don't want to do anything. And I totally understand, okay? Life doesn't stop simply because you decided to go to school. Okay, just because everything's online doesn't mean that you don't have kids at home, or that, you know, your spouse still isn't working, or, you know, it doesn't fix your financial problems. There's a lot of things that happen. You know, death doesn't stop because you're in school, and I get that. I really do. Everything bad that could have happened to me during my education totally did, like deaths and, well, not pandemics because this is our first one. But yeah, I mean, like, there was a lot of stuff that just happened, and I was very fortunate to have some very understanding instructors. And so that's the type of instructor I always wanted to be. I wanted to be understanding. So I get it, okay, that I want you to be prepared, but I don't want you to feel like you can't still be human, okay? I'm talking predominantly about, you know, oh, this is your education, take responsibility for it, for those of you that are lazy. It's not talking to those of you that just have life happen. So just, you know, let me know. Be like, hey, you know what? I got to take a mental health day. I just can't. Or, you know, I mean, I can't give you an example because this is an online class and I've never taught one, so I don't have any excuses that somebody's given me for an online class. But just keep that in mind, okay? I'm going to treat you like an adult because you have adult responsibilities, even you dual credit kids, okay? If you guys need anything, seriously, just reach out. You can text me, That's why I'm available for texting, because again, I'm a millennial, so I'm not super old, and I don't mind texting my students. All of the course requirements are clearly defined not only in this PowerPoint with me standing here telling you, but also in your syllabus or on TCC's website. So if you don't understand something, it's your responsibility, not mine, to ask for clarification as soon as possible and prior to all due dates. Hold on, I'm going to say it a little louder for the people in the back. It's your responsibility to get clarification and do it before due dates. Okay, cool. I'm glad that we're all on the same page now. And if you encounter an issue that's going to, or possibly will, result in a missed assignment, I need to know. And I need to know like immediately, because I just told you I don't take late assignments. That doesn't mean that like if you fall and break your arm on Friday and you're like, oh my God, I haven't done my assignment, then I'm going to be like, nope, sorry, your broken arm, you get a 0. Okay, like, I get it. I just recovered from fractured ribs and a bruised clavicle and minor concussion, which you guys can read about in my About Me. It's super fun. I'm so cool. Anyways, that is pretty much it for course policies and responsibilities. Okay, so at the end of this, I told you guys that, we would be doing like a kind of short, tiny little lecture. And this lecture is essentially, what is history and what do historians do? And that's because this is kind of like a low stakes lecture. You're not actually going to be responsible for any of the content in it, but it is going to give you an idea how I lecture along with the PowerPoint and kind of how this class is going to work. I do tend to talk quickly, and I don't mean to do that. I'm just not from Texas, so you guys slow your words down a whole lot. If you were like, I have no idea what you said, then just reach out to me and I will be more than happy to be like, oh yeah, no, I said this here. So first things first, let's do some history. Why do we study history, right? And I know that many of you, if you are in high school, right, you're junior, you like just took US history in like 8th grade or something, and then you have to take it again in high school, junior year, and then you have to take it again 2 years later when you become a freshman in college, and you're like, oh my God, why do I have to study history? Well, the answer to that question is that Texas wants your money. No, that is true, but we will get into why we study history in just a moment. First, let me describe what history is, right? Because I feel like a lot of instructors don't explain to you what history is, and we get a lot of common misperceptions that way. Now, what history is, it is past events. History is past events, okay? And it does usually pertain particularly to human affairs. History is a story. It's a tremendous story. It's a narrative that has, great big personalities and has struggle and suffering, and it has triumph and turmoil and victory. And each passing generation, they get to add their own chapter to history. Well, the current generation, right? So past generations, they get to add to history. Well, the current generation, us, we get to look at it and we get to, reinterpret and find new meaning in the chapters that have already been written. Now, most historians, myself included, we feel this almost poetic appeal to the past. And it's because we have this passionate interest in finding out what really happened. And yeah, I mean, it's, if you stop and you really think about it, okay, you think about all of the important places that you might want to visit, things like the battlefield at Gettysburg or the Tower of London or the White House. The reason why those places appeal to people is because of their history. If you didn't know their history, you would drive right past Gettysburg, the battlefield at Gettysburg, and you would just pass right by it. Look, it's just another field. But because you know what happened there, it means more to you. Now, how many people in this class and obviously I can't do like a show of hands, have heard the quote, "Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it"? Yeah, probably a lot of you, right? And I get that all the time. I don't know if it's because I'm a historian, all my friends are like, "Oh, well, you know, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Look at the bubonic plague, look at the flu. Now we have COVID-19." And I'm like, okay, hold the phone. That's not really how the quote should go. Really what the quote should be, because I hate this quote. I hate when people are like, "Hey, Nicole, you know, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it." No, that's absolutely not what it is. I hate this quote because what it predominantly suggests is that history only consists of mistakes that we can learn from. That's all it is. The past is just filled with a bunch of mistakes that we can learn from. Yeah, the past does have a lot of mistakes that we can learn from. But think of it like this. Not that you're doomed to repeat it if you don't know it, but those who don't know history won't be able to improve upon the present. And this is so important. I don't know who said those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, but they need to be slapped in the face. And that's because, to be honest, if you don't know history, you can't improve upon the present. And the present is where we live, right? It's important because we exist here in the present. We don't exist in the past or in the future. And what history does, right? If you don't know it, you can't improve upon the present. It provides a sense of how to tackle problems, in the real world. Hold on, let me make sure that I'm not getting ahead of myself here. No, okay. So, you know, if you don't know history, then you can't improve upon the present. How can we tackle really big problems like racism in America if you don't know about racism in America, right? It's not that here's all of these mistakes and we just keep repeating them. It's here's our mistakes. Now that we understand this part, we can, at least on a fractional level, start to understand how we can make today better, right? What the complaints are. And that's incredibly important. I mean, it's incredibly important right now, okay? Not just with the pandemic, but also with the riots that are going on. How can you address COVID-19 and its spread and all of these deaths? Well, just because you study the bubonic plague or you studied the flu pandemic in 1918 to 1922 or whatever it was, that doesn't mean that we have the answers for COVID-19. Okay, we're doomed to repeat it just because that's how the world works. Every couple hundred years we have a really bad pandemic. That's just how it happens, right? But what it means is you can look back and you can say, okay, here's what people did to stop the spread of the plague. And one of the things that they did, you guys, was social distancing, right? They closed down churches. They closed down public places. They made sure that, you know, they quarantined people. It's the same things that we're doing now. So it's not that the bubonic plague was a mistake. That just happened, right? But we can take something like that and we could go, okay, now we can tackle COVID-19 a little bit better because we know this is what's going to happen if we don't do these things. And that's the same thing with racism. Guess what? People riot and they resort to violence because you're not listening, okay? There's plenty of times we have 200 years of history of slavery and racism and oppression in this country, and nobody wants to listen to it. And that's why we're in the current, you know, climactic crazy that we are in right now. Because those who don't know history can't possibly improve upon the present. Yeah. Oh, by the way, my class is a little political. If you don't like that, you're in the wrong class. My job is not to be completely unbiased. It's to give you both sides of the story, but I had to break it to you. There's a right side and there's a wrong side. No matter how you look at it, the Nazis were bad guys. There's no right side to what the Nazis did, okay? They were on the wrong side. So, yeah, I mean, everyone has human bias, but I'm just letting you know now that you will learn quite quickly that I'm fairly liberal, and that's the way that I lean because that's how I live my life. God, I'm sorry, my throat is real dry. Okay, so that is, what the quote should be. We can't tackle problems without first understanding what the past has to teach us about it. Speaking of the past, that was a perfect segue, and I didn't even mean to do that. Those people who do start off in history, if this is, your first history class since high school or your first history class ever, I don't know what age you're in or what your degree plan is, but a lot of people consider history in the past to kind of be the same thing, and that's obviously not the case. The past, the word the past, right? The past, it refers to an earlier time. Okay, an earlier time, the people and the societies who lived there and the events that took place there. History describes our attempts at investigating, studying, and explaining the past. So historians, what we do is we explain the past to you. And how do we explain it? Well, we have to investigate it and we have to study it, okay? I have probably read more books than you will ever touch in your entire life, just from grad school alone. I had one semester where I looked at the course book list, and it was like 32 books for a 16-week semester. That's more than 2 books. Oh my goodness. Shh. No, hush. I'm in the middle of a lecture. Sorry, my cat's meowing again. What? Come here. You want to be in my lap? You want to be on camera? No, you can't be. She wants to go play, and I can't play because I'm doing this. I'm sorry. I digress. What was I talking about? What historians do. Right. What historians do. So we have to investigate. Oh, I was talking about grad school and how, like, yeah, more than 2 books a week, right? And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to read all these things? Fun fact, you don't really read them. You just have a question, you go look for the answers. But yeah, that's a whole nother jar of pickles that we're not going to open right now. So yeah, that's what historians do. We produce knowledge about the past in an attempt to contribute, and then we attempt to contribute to the knowledge that's there. Okay, and history changes a lot, and I know that sounds a little weird, but we discover new things all of the time, and that changes what we think about X, Y, and Z. And yeah, so that's what historians do. The past, we study the past, and then we interpret it to you. Well, that's what teachers do. And historians, they do the studying and the investigating. I am both. I'm both a historian and a teacher, so cheers. I get to do both things. I just realized I gotta go to the next slide. Okay, BRB. Okay, I know we're getting, pretty up there in time. I promise not all of my lectures are going to be 40 minutes long. This is just, an introduction lecture. I will try and break them up in 20-minute long videos, so that way you can find time throughout your day where you're not having to commit like an entire hour to just doing school in one day or whatnot. So, but this one is the exception to the rule because we're just kind of blasting through. So yeah, let's talk about what historians do, even though I kind of just told you what they do. But more importantly, it's not just about regurgitating information to you. It's historians who provide the contextual knowledge for great works of art or for, literature. And therefore, it enhances our enjoyment of those things. And that's why history is so important because, sure, you can read, Mark Twain, or you can go see the Sistine Chapel. And yeah, like you're like, man, that mural is awesome. Or wow, people were really racist when Mark Twain was around. Some things never change. But to have the history around Mark Twain's, Huck Finn, it changes your perception of what the book is about and, why it's such a big deal to go down the Mississippi River. And you can go to the Sistine Chapel and once you learn the history about, how long it took him to, paint and how, what a feat it truly was. it just enhances your appreciation for those things. And history, I guess what I'm getting at is that, it's really more than a lecture that you sit through or a book that you read. It can be a great rolling narrative. It can be this fantastic story. It can be something that you truly experience if you have the proper teacher and if you really allow yourself to. And the reason why, yes, I'm romanticizing history because this is my job and this is what I do and I love it so much. But the reason why society decides that you have to take U.S. history so many times is because knowledge of the past is absolutely essential in any society, period. It's just essential. And that's because what happens in the present and what will happen in the future is very much governed by what happened, what took place in the past. And, like I said earlier, there's having knowledge of the past, it doesn't bring about easy solutions to problems. When we talk about racism in America, when we talk about our current pandemic, or if we talk about places like the Middle East, right? We can't tackle those things and just expect history to give us the answers. That's not what it is. But without the knowledge of the past events that led us to today, the circumstances that surround those events, racism in America, the COVID-19 pandemic, the conflict in the Middle East, we couldn't even attempt to grapple with the problems that we have today. And that's truly what it's about. That's why you have to take this class, because you're the next generation. One day it's going to be you running for president. Maybe not you specifically, but your generation, right? And you're going to have to be making tough decisions, and you're going to have to be voting on people that maybe you don't fully agree with, but maybe they, kind of align with what you're saying or what's important to you. And you're going to be faced with things that go on in the world, with things, hopefully not another pandemic, but, racism's probably here to stay. I mean, we've been trying to fight this for 200 years, and here we are, still fighting it. So, really more than 200 years, like 400 years, if you go all the way back to the first slave being in the United States. And that's the thing is, one day it's going to be you teaching this to people, or you having these conversations in your social circles, or you reporting the news, and you're going to have to sit back and you're going to have to figure out the circumstances that surround these past events. And that's where history comes in. And to be honest, without the knowledge of the past, we would kind of be without identity. We would just kind of be lost. And I know that you're thinking that's not true, but I really want you to imagine a world where the only history that you have access to is what you've been through and what your parents have been through, and if you have living grandparents, what your grandparents have lived through, so you can talk to them, right? So you're talking for the majority of you guys, your grandparents weren't even alive during World War II. My Mima, she just turned 80 last Sunday, and she was born in 1940, so she doesn't remember World War II. But I mean, like, she remembers, the post-World War world, and that's the world that she grew up in. So, to think that if I only had access to her memories, my mom's memories, and mine, then you're talking, you miss World War II. And without learning about World War II, you can't possibly understand how the United States is the way it is right now. So that's what I mean by, we would be without identity. And just let me prove it to you on the next slide. Okay, so in my class, this is usually where I would make you guys pair up or get into groups, so that way you could kind of introduce yourself to one another. Obviously, this is digital, so we're not going to do that. But I do still want you to kind of think about this exercise. Now, what this exercise is designed to do is it's to get you to really think about why we do history and what the use of history is. And like I just said, right? So try to imagine a world where you don't have history, where society has no knowledge of the past. The only knowledge you have is the local knowledge of your grandparents, your parents, and yourself, and how different the world would look if we didn't have knowledge of everything else that's going on around us. And that means that you have no knowledge of how your society or your country came into existence. You don't really know what your country represents and how it came to be in the world we live in. You kind of understand a little bit because there is, oral history where it is passed from one generation to another, but like the telephone game, we know that oral history gets changed. And so the only thing you can really trust is the firsthand accounts of yourself, your parents, and your grandparents. Now what I want you to do is I want you to think about something that in your mind is innately American. When you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's America. And I want you to think about what makes it special. So let's take the American flag. Oh my God, I don't know what my cat just knocked over. I'm sorry if you can hear that. Let's take the American flag, for example, right? If you don't know anything about the American flag, you just know that it's a piece of fabric that we salute and that, flies around the country. But you wouldn't know what it represents, right? 13 stripes for the 13 original colonies, 50 stars for the 50 different states, red, white, and blue because France and Great Britain, those types of things. And if you don't know the history, is that thing still special? Does the national anthem mean the same thing to you if you don't understand the history behind the national anthem? Does the does Pearl Harbor mean the same thing to you if you don't know the history behind it? What makes the thing that you were thinking about special? The Pledge of Allegiance, the Star-Spangled Banner, the American flag. Why do people get so upset when you burn the American flag? At the end of the day, it's just a piece of fabric, isn't it? Why are people so mad when you kneel during the national anthem? It's just a song, isn't it? The answer is no. It's about the history. It's about the things that those things represent, right? What the flag represents to people, what the national anthem represents to people. Well, why does it represent those things? At the end of the day, it represents what it does because of history. And that's why you're here, to give you context for life, for the things that you hold important and without even realizing that you do. And that's what we try and do. And that's why you have to take this stupid class over and over and over again. Whew, we are pushing an hour and I am so sorry. So I do promise that I will break up all future PowerPoints into smaller videos. I'm not going to make them all 50 minutes long. I'm going to try and do them in 15-20 minute increments just because your attention span is not that long. My attention span's not that long. So yeah, anyways, I know I'm covering up the thing. It says, up next in History 1302, the Gilded Age. And yeah, so thank you for sticking with me to the end, assuming you actually watched this all the way through. If you didn't, then at least you got the syllabus part, I hope. But anyways, I will see you guys all in a little bit because I'm going to have to record, the lecture for the Gilded Age. But yeah, so let's do some history.